Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fan Sports New York Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcilio Langella. And Mars, we are at Week 5. This is for the Section 1 AA football show. And, man, we are getting, games are just coming and going. We have some big victories that happened last week, setting up for some big matchups this week, especially in league play. And we're getting closer and closer to the playoffs.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's only a few weeks away, and it's really going to be really showdowns in the playoffs, and I think that's going to be the most exciting part. I mean, I think everybody loves a playoff season, and just being able to do that after a whole COVID, condensed season is already, I think, going to be more exciting than before.
Absolutely, and you're going to have some young teams trying to pull off some upsets if teams have started to struggle. So it's really exciting. But I want to welcome all our fans. I appreciate you guys for tuning in each week. And if you are new, we cover Section 1 football. This is for the 1AA football show. So make sure you guys follow us if you haven't on all our social medias. If you're watching this on YouTube, which is the only way you can watch it, make sure you hit that subscribe button for us, and we really do appreciate the support. And you can also get all our content on our website at fansportsny.com, as well as you can give donations to the show, and all donations go back into the show, and appreciate any donations. You can also buy merchandise if that interests you as well. And so what the show is going to do is we're going to talk about the games that are on slate. We'll talk a little bit about the different leagues and the seedings, because obviously we're getting around playoff time, so you got to start looking at that stuff. And then we'll go over a couple matchups and then give our game picks at the end. So that's kind of how the show is going to work. So let's get started. First things up, the games on slate. White Plains 3-1 at Arlington. That is 2-2. That is a non-league game. That is on Friday. Another Friday game, RCK 2-2 at Mamaroneck, who's 4-0. That is a non-league game. Friday, John Jay East Fishkill 2-2 at Fox Lane. That's 3-1. That is a league game. Carmel 4-0 at Clarkstown South. That's 3-1. That is a league game. Spring Valley 0-4 at Suffern, who's 3-1. That is a league game. Mount Vernon 2-2 at New Rochelle. That's 3-1. That is a league game. And then Scarsdale 1-3 at Yonkers Forest on a Saturday. That is 1-3. That is a league game. Yonkers Brave at Portchester, Yonkers Brave and Portchester both 0-4, non-league game. And then Ossining to round it all off, 1-4 at North Rockland, who's 2-2. That is also a non-league game. So those are the games on slate. And when you look at, again, the different leagues, in League A and C, the top two teams get an automatic playoff berth. In League B, the top four teams get into the playoffs. So, again, different leagues have different, rules, but the big thing to keep in mind is league record is huge, right? So league record is extremely important. That is the number one tiebreaker. Then the second one is head-to-head. And the third tiebreaker is overall record, and that's just for League A and C. So really important. Followed up by that, if everything is tied, points allowed in the first half. So teams that have better defenses are going to win that tiebreaker at the fourth slot. But if I look at League A, Mars, if the season were to end today, the first place team is Mamaroneck, who is 4-0, including 4-0 in league play, followed by New Rochelle, who's 3-1. They're 2-0 in league play. So they have a couple league games to go. Mount Vernon is 2-2. They're 2-1 in league play. Scarsdale is in fourth spot at 1-3. They're 0-2 in league play, followed by Yonkers Forest, who's 1-3 and 1-2 in league play. I think Yonkers Forest and Scarsdale are flopped. So I think Yonkers Forest has to be 4 and Scarsdale 5. And then Yonkers Brave is 0-4 and 0-4 in league play. Then when I go to B, again, top four teams make it to the playoffs. So in first place at the moment, Carmel is 4-0. They're 2-0 in league play, followed by Clarkstown South, who's 3-1. They're 3-0 in league play. So Carmel and Clarkstown South both undefeated in league play. Then Suffern at 3, who's 3-1, 2-1 in league play. Then North Rockland and Arlington, both 2-2 and both 1-2 in league play. And then followed by Spring Valley, who's 0-4. And then in C, White Plains is 3-1. They're 3-0 in league play. And then Fox Lane is 3-1. They're 2-0 in league play. And then the number 3 team is John Jay East Fishkill, who's 2-2. They're 2-0 in league play. RCK at 4, who's 2-2. They're 1-2 in league play. And then Ossining, who's 1-4, is 1-3 in league play. And Portchester, who is 0-4, and they're 0-4 in league play. So that's how the league is set up at the moment. So we have some big games coming up. And let's start with it, Mars. And we'll start with a non-league game. White Plains 3-1 at Arlington. That's 2-2. Interesting matchup between two non-league teams. And Arlington overall since 2004 is 3-2 versus White Plains. These teams have done a pretty good job going back and forth, but Arlington has won 3 straight against White Plains in their last 3 matchups, including a win in 2019, which is the last time they played. And last week, White Plains won at Portchester. Arlington won at Spring Valley. So both coming off a victory. And let's start with White Plains Mars on the road. Offensively, this is the number 3 offense in points per game scored in AA out of the 18 teams. They're number 1 in the League C. They've scored 54 points last week. The offense was humming. They have 3 games scoring over 34 points, and you're going to see some spread. You're going to see some empty looks. You're going to see some mix, a bunch of mixed stuff with this offense, especially with Eli Pierre out, which is a big loss for that offense. And when he comes back, I'm not sure. But you needed guys to step up in the running game, and they actually did. And last week, Isaiah Graham, the junior, he had 206 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. He made some big plays in the running game. And another guy, Nick Spista, he had a rushing touchdown last week. There's another guy who stepped up to help with this running game, and they're going to need to continue to do that. And these are guys that can line up in the backfield and also in the slot, which makes things pretty interesting. And then, there's another guy, wide receiver Danny Lasalle. We know about him. He's a big target guy, 6'3". But they also have another guy, Jacob Lee, the junior. He had 4 catches, 95 yards. And a touchdown last week. These guys, they have weapons, right? And so I'm looking at their quarterback, Jay Biondi. He's got to be smart with the football. There's another big playmaker guy. Sometimes it can be a little bit reckless, and he's got to find those one-on-one matchups against a big front in Arlington that's going to be bringing some pressure on them. And the offensive line, can they handle the size and strength of Arlington's defensive front? White Plains has given a tendency to give up pressure to the quarterback. And so how can they handle that pressure? And can Biondi get the ball to their targets? He's a talented quarterback. Can he be smart with the football, find those one-on-one probably it's going to be difficult running in between the tackles, get these running backs out on the edge because they have speed. Defensively, Mars, though, White Plains I thought has played pretty well defensively as well. They're number 6 in points allowed out of the 18. They're also number 1 in League C. How are they going to handle the power running game of Arlington is the big question I have. A couple weeks ago when they played Scarsdale, they had a tough time handling that. And so you're going to need these linebackers and defensive linemen to make plays, and these safeties are going to be near the line of scrimmage against Arlington, especially in those heavy sets. They're going to have to be very aggressive, and I'm looking at guys like Nick Spista and Graham are going to have to make plays in the running game, and they have to be aware of Ian Griffin. I mean, that guy, he can line up in the backfield. He can line up at wide receiver. He is their big play threat guy. Really off play action that could really hurt you. So the secondary has to be wary of them, but it all has to start with the running game, Mars. And when I go to Arlington offensively, I thought they've been a little bit inconsistent on the offensive side of the ball. They scored 29 points, though, 2 out of the last 3 weeks. It all starts with running the football. I mean, they have a size advantage with that offensive line, and then they have some power runners that can really start hammering you on those downhill runs. And to me, Brad Nieves, their fullback, running back, and linebacker, he's a versatile guy. I mean, you can line him up at fullback, you can be a lead blocker, you can get him out of the backfield on play action and throw it to him, and he can take those downhill runs. He had 3 touchdowns last week. I like the versatility that he shows. Aidan Shaffe, this guy is about 6'1", 190 pounds. He's another strong downhill runner. He had a touchdown as well. And I think it was either last week or 2 weeks ago, but I think he had a touchdown last week. This is a young guy. Another downhill runner type guy. And then their most dynamic player, I mentioned him before, Ian Griffin. I mean, this guy moves around. He's a tailback, wide receiver. They'll motion him around. That is their big play guy. So after you give him the ball a few times out on the edge, or he can run downhill as well. You can also play action and throw it to him. But I'm looking at these quarterbacks, right? And, I've seen them improve as the season's gone along. It's been a little bit of a bumpy road trying to stay consistent. But guys like Muhammad and Resigno, can they continue to make plays in their games that they've won? That's the difference, is seeing those guys make those plays. And then once they lost, you see a little bit of that inconsistency. So that's the big one. Defensively, Mars, this secondary is going to be tested. And, one of their DBs, Seth Newman, he had an interception last week. But White Plains has playmakers. Right, so how is this secondary going to handle those playmakers? And one way they can help is with this D-line and getting pressure on White Plains, who has given up pressures to their quarterback. And I'm looking at a guy like Isaiah Weathers. He had a fumble recovery last week. A guy who can, him and the rest of that defensive line getting after the quarterback and forcing some heavy pressure throws, which could lead to some interceptions. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, when I look at this matchup, it's actually very interesting because of the fact that, I'm not trying to call us both out here, but beginning of the season, we were pointing to who would be the next best offense in Section 1AA.
Well,
you said White Plains, and I said
top
Arlington.
2. White Plains is 3, so they're still right there.
I'm just saying we picked it on ourselves here. But when I look at both these teams, they do have a lot of weapons, and I like the matchup. I like the matchup because it's interesting, because you have one aspect. The White Plains is more of a spread you out type of an offense, and then you have Arlington, who is more of a downhill running type of offense, and they're it's almost like they're a tale of two tapes. And I feel like when you look at White Plains, they have all these playmakers, and one of their best playmakers, Eli Pierre, is just we don't know the extent of how long he'll be out for, and I think that's going to be one of the big things that we will be looking at for this game. But they aren't devoid of playmakers. They have Isaiah Graham, Nick Spista, Danny at Lasalle. I think these guys are all very talented weapons that you can have on your team, and I think that it all is going to revolve around the offensive line and whether they can hold up against this large defensive front. But it's also going to be dependent on Jay Biondi, the quarterback, and he just needs to make sure that he makes smart decisions and doesn't really try to force anything that he doesn't have available to him, because he's going to have a lot of chances to get his weapons into open space. Right? He's going to have those that chance to do so. Defensively, it's all going to be about stopping the run. Arlington's going to try to run you over, and if you could do that, then you're really going to set your secondary up to kind of have a chance to maybe make a big play, especially when they're going to try to start throwing the ball a little bit more. From Arlington's perspective, it's kind of like the opposite. Run the ball. Like, you have the size advantage on not only the offensive line, but also your backs. So try to see what you can get out of that. And if you can kind of control the line of scrimmage and really just control the possession of the ball, the time of the possession, then you're really going to start to wear down White Plains in a lot of different ways, which then will open up more plays for you. I think that you have a lot of playmakers. I think both quarterbacks, Rasigno and Muhammad, have been playing pretty well in this dual combination quarterback system, and I really think this offensive line is really what's going to dictate whether or not this game will go in their favor or not. And the same thing you can say about the defensive line as well. So I think that Arlington and White Plains' matchup is very interesting for sure.
Absolutely. And let's go to another game, another non-league game, another interesting matchup. Mars RCK, who's 2-2, at Mamaroneck, who's 4-0. Again, this is a non-league game, but you look at these two teams since 2004. RCK is 3-1 versus Mamaroneck. Last time they played, though, was in 2017, so it's been a few years. And last week, RCK won versus Ossining. They've won 2 straight now. Mamaroneck won at Scarsdale in a thrilling game. But let's start with RCK. Offensively, Mars, they've scored over 30 points the last 2 weeks, and to me, it is sparked by this rush attack, this downhill rush attack that they have. And it starts with that offensive line. I think guys like Nunez and the rest of them have done a really solid job of opening holes and giving their running back and quarterback chances in the running game. And when you look at the running back, it starts with Avon Owens. He's had over 100 yards in 2 straight games, over 5 touchdowns the last couple weeks, right? So, actually, I think it was 5 touchdowns total. I mean, 5 touchdowns in 2 weeks is pretty darn good. He's been really good for them. Big guy who can run through contact. And then their explosive guy is their quarterback, Sean Camacho. And he's hit a couple big plays. He had 2 50-yard touchdowns over the last 2 weeks, 50-yard plus. This is a guy, when he gets into open field, he really has that extra burner that he can hit those big chunk plays. And I would imagine that's what they're going to try to do. Attack downhill and get Camacho out into space to hit those big plays. But the defensive line and linebacking group in Mamaroneck has been playing pretty good. So they got to play their game. They got to make sure that they're blocking, get a body on a body. Do not let these linebackers roam free. And they have to avoid turnovers. That's the big thing. RCK tends to turn the ball over, which really hurts them. They have been better at that, winning the turnover battle the last couple weeks. And that's going to be the big difference in this one. Can you control the time of possession? They're playing against a Mamaroneck offense, Mars, that is really potent. If you can run the ball successfully, and control the ball, what you're doing is also helping your defense, keeping Mamaroneck's offense on the sideline. So that's going to be big. And when I look at defense, again, like I said, you're up against a really efficient offense. You're going to see spread looks. You're going to see some read plays. And they want to get the quarterback the ball in his hands, running the ball and throwing it, and then handing off to their stud backs, trying to create some open lanes and some space. It makes me a little nervous for RCK, Mars, because 3 games this season, they've given up 29-plus points, which is a lot of points. So they got to avoid the big play. But last week, only 6 points allowed. They forced turnovers over the last 2 weeks. Kevin Camacho had an interception for a touchdown last week. John Capo, one of the best players. He's going to have to play big in this one. He forced 3 turnovers the week prior in their upset victory at Clarkstown South. So, again, you're going to see they're going to try to spread you out. These defensive linemen and linebackers are going to have to make one-on-one plays. But Mamaroneck also is going to test you deep. I mean, they're not just going to settle and do all the short stuff. They will go some play action and try to hit some deep passes. But when I look at Mamaroneck, Mars, this is actually the number 1 offense in points scored in 1AA. Right, out of the 18 teams, is the number 1 offense so far. Starts with their quarterback, Jason Cox. 9 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks, Mars. He has been really good throwing the ball and running it. He's not a very big guy, but he's been really efficient. And he's a slippery runner on the edge. I mean, this guy has really made some big-time plays. One of the big surprises of this season. And another guy, Hamilton, their running back. 2 touchdowns 2 weeks ago. Last week, he had 11 yards rushing. And these were hard-earned runs, some big runs through contact that really helped change the game, especially in the first half. But I'm expecting against that big RCK front, them try to test the edge. Again, RCK has given up some big plays in the running game and in the passing game. So I would imagine they're going to try to get their backs out on the edge, their quarterbacks out on the edge, and try to hit some deep passes because I do think that they will be there. The question is, can Mamaroneck stay efficient? Defensively, Mars, this is what's been the big surprise to me is this Mamaroneck defense. I knew their offense could be pretty solid. Defensively, though, they're number 2 in points allowed so far. And I thought last week they played pretty well for 3 quarters. Now, I know how are they going to handle the power running game? This is probably the stronger team that they've played so far this season, especially with the downhill running. But, again, I'm looking at this defensive line, and guys like Bennett, Somers, Sandrum, their linebackers, Paneros, Ramsey, have been playing really solid so far this season and going to have to do it again, right? This is the team that, if they can continue to play good defense, they could be a threat in 1AA. And so we're going to see it against a now power running football team. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this game, I think that RCK has been kind of hitting their rhythm. I feel like the fact that they've been scoring, 30 points in the past 2 games?
It was 30 points last 2 weeks.
Yeah, last 2 games.
30 plus.
30 plus. And that's the point, is that they've been kind of hitting their stride on the offensive end, and defensively they've been playing pretty effective as well. The point is, though, is that I think that once you see a team that starts to kind of get that momentum, they become dangerous, right? Because when everything's going well for you, it feels like you're unstoppable, and that's when the chemistry really starts to develop. And you really been seeing that with guys like Sean Camacho, who's been just an explosive playmaker in this offense. And I think that for them, they're going to rely heavily on him in this offensive line to really push the ball, right? And I think that when you look at RCK's offense, the biggest weakness they have is going to be their discipline and not making those mistakes and turning the ball over. If they can do that, if they can be effective and not turn the ball over, this offense can be very, very deadly. And defensively, it's more like they have to be the bend but don't break, because Mamaroneck has just been lights out on the offense, and I feel like you have to just try to decrease the amount of big plays that they're going to have, and it's easier said than done, because when you look at Mamaroneck, Jason Koch has just been super impressive. And then you have other playmakers like Hamilton, who's just been lights out as well. And I feel like for Mamaroneck, they're like the other same thing. Everything's been hitting well for them, right? They're the only other how many undefeated teams do we have in AA? I mean,
it's just Mamaroneck and Carmel.
Yeah, so it's like between Carmel and Mamaroneck, nobody else has had this winning streak that's up to this date, and everyone's pointing to Carmel as being like one of the top 5 teams. I just saw recently, I think it was Low had put out the thing saying that
they're 3, right?
Yeah, no, they're 2. They're the number 2 ranked team in the area.
Are they?
Something, yeah, it was a high. They were.
I thought they were 3, but you could be right.
No, I saw just recently, and I could be wrong, but yeah, I saw it today. And I mean, not saying Mamaroneck should be a top 5 team compared to like Stepanek.
They're top 10. I know.
Yeah, they're top 10. They should deserve to be. I mean, the point is that they're undefeated.
Yep.
And now they've been playing against good teams, and I think that when you look at this team on the offense and defensive side, everything's melding right. And when you look at what their game plan is going to be against RCK, they have speed, right? Get to the edge. I mean, RCK has some big guys up front, so try to see if they can match your speed, right? Try to get them hit the big plays, and I think that if you can do that, then your offense is going to be clicking, and your defense really just has to rely on your D line to really hold up against those big guys up front.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to another matchup, Mars, and. This is a league game, and 2 teams trying to get back into the league race. And Scarsdale, who's 1-3, is at Yonkers Forest, who's 1-3. This is a League A matchup. The last time these two teams played, Yonkers Forest actually won versus Scarsdale back in 2018. And when you look at last week, Scarsdale lost a heartbreaker to Mamaroneck. Yonkers Forest lost a heartbreaker to Fox Lane at the goal line. So two teams trying to bounce back after tough losses last week. And let's start with Scarsdale Moss. Offensively, they struggled last week for about 3 quarters. And then the fourth quarter, they kind of went on an explosion. But overall, only 185 yards of total offense. So it was a bit of a struggle, like I mentioned. But they scored those 21 points in the second half to give them a chance in the game. And so when I look at this unit, last week I really thought they lost. Again, when we talk about Scarsdale's offense, they're really looking in the run game to get the 3.5 yards each play. And they just didn't get that, right? And a lot of results are because too many penalties really hurt them, too many negative plays that kind of put them behind the sticks and make them play an offense that they don't like to do, which is getting behind the chains. Now, the quarterback, Nicholas, got hurt. Don't know the status of him. But Duvall came in for them last week. He scored 3 touchdowns. He's an explosive runner. I think he's more of a explosive runner than Nicholas, although Nicholas, I think, is a better passer. So if Duvall is playing at the quarterback spot, I would imagine the pass plays are going to be pretty drawn down. And so with the new quarterback coming in, although he's an explosive runner, you got to rely on this offensive line, right? This offensive line has to step up and play better than they did last week. And you got to rely on some of those other backs that have been coming back. Glantz, Baldwin, Killian, they got to help make plays for your quarterback when he's a new guy stepping in. He made some, again, teams are now going to be scheming towards him being more of a runner. So I'm interested to see how this offense, but the way you can help them, the other guys making those plays, get those 3.5 yards, run harder, block better than you did last week. You got to play together, especially when you're dealing with injuries. Defensively, for the most part, I thought the defense played hard, but they just didn't tackle well last week overall, which led to some big plays. And so I'm looking at, again, when I talked about the offensive line, defensive line's got to play better, use their speed. Again, Yonkers Forest is going to have the size advantage, but use your speed. And again, that's going to be the big thing for the Scarsdale D-line. And they got to be wary of the quarterback run. Yonkers Forest is a quarterback who has made a bunch of plays these last couple of weeks using his legs. And so defending against the quarterback run is going to be big. Struggled a little bit against Mamaroneck last week with it. I'm interested to see how they do it this time. When I look at Yonkers Forest, again, they lost last week at a fumble at the goal line. They played really hard. I like the way that they battled last week on the road. And when I look at the offensively, their quarterback, Atticus Olkers, 3 touchdowns the last 2 weeks. I really have started to like this guy. He has been a playmaker for them, for this team. And offensively, this is a guy who can hurt you running the ball and make some plays in the passing game. I think the O-line has a size advantage like I talked about versus Scarsdale. So I'm interested to see if they do a little bit of power running versus Scarsdale because I think going lateral is not going to be the best thing that they could do. But they're going to have to hit some plays in the passing game. And, Scarsdale gave up some of those passing plays last week. A guy like Malachi Keels, he had a receiving touchdown last week, one of the more explosive playmakers that they have. And so I'm interested to see what this offense does on Yonkers Forest. And again, they like to spread you out. They like to get the quarterback who's got to be he's got to have a big burden on him. But this guy's been making plays for them. Defensively, again, defense versus the option. A couple weeks ago, they played against the option with the Brave. I thought they did a pretty good job, but this is a step up, right? And definitely a step up at the fullback spot in Glantz, who really is a bell cow running back. Expect to see a lot from him. But also Duvall, their quarterback. Again, he's an explosive guy running the ball. He had 3 touchdowns last week. Not so much of a passer, though, right? So be wary of who's going to be playing the quarterback spot. If it is Duvall, again, you have to be worried about him pulling the ball and running it because he's explosive. A guy like Brian Espinal, he's been making a lot of plays for this defense, so I'm looking to see a guy like him step up again this week. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, when I look at this game, I feel like you kind of feel for Scarsdale, right? That was obviously a very tough loss for them, and it's like one of those that point where it's almost like I believe they are eliminated. Now I could be wrong. I have to really see how the end of the season really shapes out, but it's almost like
that one really hurt.
Yeah, it just makes it very difficult for them to really claw their way back in. But when you look at how they climbed back into the game, I think that's what's really shows you the resilience of this team, right? Yep. And I think that should already be something that you kind of point to as being that showed fight, right? You have to definitely applaud them for that. But when you look at this game, you obviously cannot have negative plays, and that was what hurt them a lot in the last game. And I think that you now have to rely more on your offensive line to really get a bigger push to allow you to gain some positive. You can't be in those 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7s. You have to be in those third and threes, those really short, where you can kind of mix and match what you want to run with. And defensively, I think you have to be just more efficient on tackling. I mean, I think that you're not going to have a size advantage. But you have to rally.
Yep.
I think that's going to be the big thing for Scarsdale. For Yonkers Force, I think that you since you do have a size advantage, you should try to utilize that. I think that your offensive line is going to be bigger, and I think that you can try to utilize some more power schemes to try to get more downhill. I know that they're more of a spread, spread
but you can
but
run
you can
power
still run power
spread,
out of the spread, and I think that they should utilize those schemes. Defensively, I think the fact that they played a similar styled offense to Scarsdale is definitely going to kind of help them in this game, because it feels like they got a taste of it, and now it's like almost like, all right, now you got the full course meal.
That's a good point.
And I feel like having that kind of test run with this style of offense gives them a edge, because of the fact that they already know how do you stop it. It's more just about executing it on a higher level.
Yeah, they do different stuff.
Yeah,
right. It's not exactly the same, but you make a good point. You got a taste of it, right? So it's not something that you haven't seen this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I agree with you on that. Let's go to another game. This is a big league matchup, Mars. John Jay East Fishkill 2-2 at Fox Lane, who is 3-1. This is a League C matchup. Both teams, Mars, are 2-0 in league play. Colossal game right now that's going on at Fox Lane. John Jay East Fishkill since 2004 is 6-0 versus Fox Lane, including a win in the spring. And when you look at last week, John Jay East Fishkill lost versus Scarsdale, kind of got beat up a little bit. Fox Lane won at the end of the game versus Force. But let's start with John Jay East Fishkill. They have a long streak, Mars, of having winning records and making the playoffs over the last few years. Again, a win would be a big push in that direction to continue that streak, and a loss will hurt big time. And when I look offensively, Mars, it was tough. I mean, they went up against a dominant front in Carmel last week. Not many fronts can handle this Carmel defensive front, and I'm expecting this offensive line to play better this week. They're young, but they have some bulk up front. Again, not some tall guys, but some wide guys. And so I imagine they're going to try to test the strength of Fox Lane and attack with some downhill runs. Guys like Aidan Gallagher had a long touchdown last week. Guys like Crouch, who've been running the ball for them in the past. And it'll open up this pass attack. I look at quarterback Vanderoff, throwing it to guys like Payton and Feliciano. Payton is definitely a big threat guy, so I would imagine they're going to try to attack downhill, hit some quick ones, and then that's when the play action and the deep passes to guys like Payton are going to come. They want to try to be a balanced attack, but it all starts with me. If they could run downhill, it really will open up everything else. Defensively, again, you're up against a Fox Lane rush attack that has been pretty solid and improving. Now, again, John G. Fishkill likes to do that 4-man front, have those 2 big tackles over guards, and it makes it hard to run in between the B gaps schematically, right? But, to me, can they handle the weapons that Fox Lane has on the outside, right? Because Fox Lane has some speed out on the edge who have made plays the last couple weeks. And so I'm looking at the edge defenders, the outside linebackers, the secondary, how they play this week against those skill guys. A guy like Payton, again, he's one of the better players in the section and in this class. And how are they going to bracket a guy like Madsen? He's one of the best wide receivers in 1AA, big play guy. How are they going to go? Are they going to bracket him? Are they going to go one-on-one with their best corner? I'm interested to see how they play him, a guy who can move around both on the outside and in the slot. And their quarterbacks at Fox Lane like to run the ball. So, again, your linebackers and your outside guys have to be aware of this, especially when they're rushing the passer. They have 2 quarterbacks who have both shown to hurt people with their legs. When I look at Fox Lane, Mars, what a start for them. They started 3-1. You got to be happy for the coaching staff and for the players. Not a lot of people thought they would be 3-1. It's a really good start for them. And offensively, I talked about it. Both quarterbacks have made plays. Last week, to me, it was Eric Miller. In 3 of 8 passing, again, not the most efficient passing, but 94 yards and a touchdown, also 55 rushing and a touchdown. He's had 5 touchdowns the last 2 weeks, over the last 2 weeks. And then Trav is kind of their faster guy, their more mobile guy. He had 2 touchdowns the week prior, right? So you got 7 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks between these 2 quarterbacks. guys who have different flavors to them. Eric Mills is more the bigger power runner guy, and Travis is more the scrambler. But John J. Fishkill last week struggled with quarterback runs, right? So I imagine that, Fox Lane is going to try to test that with some of these quarterbacks, especially Travis, out on the edge. But I'm also looking at this run attack if they can run against the bigger front in John J. Fishkill. Guys like Mike DeBono had 50 yards and a touchdown last week. It will not be easy sledding. So I'm interested to see if this offensive line, how they handle that John J. Fishkill front and front seven. But they have the weapons on the outside. And a guy like Matson 2 weeks ago, he had over 100 yards receiving. He's one of the dangerous receivers in this class. A guy like Pedro Silva, Mars, I thought he did pretty good job last week getting out on the edge on jet sweeps. He had 61 yards rushing, 43 yards receiving to have over 100 yards total. He's another guy on the outside who can be a weapon. Feingold, he had a 47-yard touchdown, right? So they have some weapons on the outside that could test this secondary, who has some young guys out there. Now, defensively, the last 2 weeks, I thought they've been solid. They've only allowed 14 points over the last 2 weeks. They're number 7 out of the 18 teams in points allowed. Defense overall has been solid, right? They're missing one of their better players and one of the better defensive backs in Bernero. I saw that, again, he wasn't playing last week. Don't know the status of him. Him not playing is a big loss. But I'm looking at this defensive line and linebackers who are going to get tested to see if they're strong enough in the tackle box to handle some of this power running. And when they do, that's when you're going to see him take some deep shots with guys like Payton and the screen game. That's going to be big. He's Fishkill's really known for screens, so they got to be disciplined on the Fox Lane defense. I'm interested to see how they're going to handle a deep threat guy like Payton. Are they going to bracket coverage to him, or are they going to try to get extra guys in the box to stop their running game? It's going to be really interesting. Mars, what do you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, I feel like when you look at this game, it's definitely going to have a major effect on the playoff, circumstances.
League C is a big one in League C,
just because of the fact both these two teams have been very competitive, and I feel like this is going to definitely change the outlook of the entire division of C. And I think that when you look at John J.'s Fishkill, playing against Carmel, it's Carmel is like one of those.
Yeah, they're loaded this year.
Loaded this year, and we talked about the fact that Carmel's kind of on those runs that they're just dominating everyone. They dominated Rochelle, they dominated John Jay. It's just they're dominating everyone. So you can't. You have to kind of use that in the rear view mirror. You have to move forward, and I think that they will. Specifically, the offensive line, I think, will definitely have a better go at just establishing the run against Fox Lane versus Carmel. I mean, Carmel is just, like I said, they're just loaded, right? I'm not saying that Fox Lane isn't, but it's just different. They're not, you can just tell that they're just different. And John Jay has the weapons, but I think the game offensively is going to depend on the offensive line. And then when you look at Fox Lane, I think the biggest thing for them is just the opposite end. Can the front seven match this big, tough offensive line that John Jay does have? Now, granted, they aren't massive individuals, but John Jay, if they're not tall and huge, they're wide, right? and I feel like they are just moving fridges, right? That's like just mini fridges that they may be short and stocky, but they are loaded with a lot of weight behind it. Yeah. So the point is that can this defensive front seven really hold up against that, right? And if they can, then I think this is going to be a game, because Fox Lane's offensively, they have the weapons, right? And they have the speed, they have the ability to make a play. But the question is going to be, can their defense really slow the game down, right? Slow the pace, so that at least allows Fox Lane's
defense has been pretty solid for Fox Lane.
Yeah, no, it has been.
It's pretty good. Let's go to the game of the week, Mars. And this was an obvious game of the week, and this is a league matchup in League B. Carmel 4-0 at Clarkstown South, who is 3-1. And both these teams are undefeated in league play. So the winner of this is actually going to be first place in League B. Right? So really interesting matchup. Clarkstown South is actually 4-2 versus Carmel since 2004, and they've actually won 4 straight versus Carmel. But the last time they played each other was in 2017. So it has been a few years. Last week, Carmel won at John Jay's Fishkill, and Clarkstown South won at Suffern. So both winning on the road, both impressive victories. And let's start with Carmel. I mean, offensively, I continue to be impressed by the offensive line, fullback, and tight ends in this power running scheme. They have done a tremendous job of moving bodies. We talk about X's and O's, Mars, and different schemes, and how coaches get different personnel groups, but when you have linemen and fullbacks and tight ends who could just move everybody they go against, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, right? You just run downhill. And that's exactly, Carmel's not making it complicated. They're running the football, and they're running it right at you because they have guys who can move people. And this is one of the best units in Section 1. Let's just call it what it is. And they're at their best when they go into those heavy sets and they run downhill because they can condense the defense. And then not only will they run off tackle or run right up the gut, they'll condense the defense and run outside, right? Because they'll get those running backs and those tight ends to block people out on the edge, and they don't think the corners and safeties can be physical enough against them. And they tend to be right so far. So I look at all those guys, but to me, I'm looking at the running back tandem, and they have a couple guys who could really hurt you. Massey, who last week he didn't even play, right? He's one of the better backs. But a guy like Shields has really been solid for this team, running the football. Keating. I mean, they have a couple different guys who have run the ball pretty well behind this front. And their quarterback, to me, Dahl, was really, really good last week. He is an absolute weapon out of play action. And they mix in the spread. They'll mix in the heavy sets. But when they go heavy sets and he does play action, he gets out on the edge, look out. It causes a lot of problems. Defensively, this is the number one defense in 1AA. The number one in points allowed out of the 18 AA teams. They have playmakers at each level. And when I look at this front four, they are very disruptive. Guys like Telesco, Fusco, Danvin. They cause a lot of penetration. There's others too. They substitute guys. But those guys leading the way, they're hard to move, and they really get after. They cause a lot of disruption and get into the backfield. And this allows their linebackers to roam free and make a lot of plays because everyone's focusing on blocking them. Now, Clarkstown South is a group that has playmakers out on the outside, guys with a lot of speed. So to me, this is going to be the secondary's biggest test outside of New Rochelle is this Clarkstown South unit because they seem to be getting better each week. So I'm interested to see how the secondary plays this and now ways they can help their secondary, which is a pretty good secondary in Carmel, is getting pressure with that front four. So I would imagine that's going to be the goal, is to get some pressure on these young quarterbacks and make them get rid of the ball quickly and when they don't want to. When I go to Clarkstown South, Mars, they're going to be a big underdog. But the good news is they are home, okay? They only have about like a dozen seniors, or about 12, and they have about 20-plus juniors, right? But this team has matured. Those seniors have done a good job of carrying the load while those juniors get used to the ropes, and they have matured pretty quickly. I mean, that was a huge win that they had last week. And looking at the offensive side of the ball, the offensive line is going to be in a dogfight. I mentioned they're going up against a really tough front four, a really tough front seven. And pass protection is going to be big. So I'm looking at guys, the offensive line led by Ryan. How are they going to hold up against this front? It's going to be hard running the ball consistently. So I think they're going to have to make plays in the passing game. And I look at these quarterbacks have been getting better. They really have. They've been making more and more plays each week. Holder last week had 2 touchdown passes that were huge. Again, it's not going to be easy running the ball. I know they're going to try, and they should. You have to have some balance. But I'm looking at these skill guys, right? I'm looking to see the quick passing game mixing up with some shots down the field. Guys like Fateri, Ale. I mean, these are guys that have been making plays for them the last couple weeks, and they have a couple other ones too, but these skill guys are going to have to make some big plays for them to have a chance to win this one. And so I'm looking at those guys, this is going to be a step up in competition, and I think they're going to be up for the challenge, and they have some skill guys who could be some, create some big dynamic plays for them, and they're going to have to. Defensively, I thought the defense played tough last week, but I'm wondering which defense is going to show up, right? Because I do like this Clarkstown South unit, but is it going to be the defense that showed up versus Suffern and North Rockland? Because that unit was really strong and really potent, or the one that played against RCK, right? That struggled to stop big plays. Again, the defensive front seven, the defensive line, the linebackers, guys like Ryan, May, La Rosa, Calabrese, who I thought played really well last week at the linebacker spot. This is going to be a dogfight in this downhill rushing attack. You can't be hesitant. You got to win one-on-one battles, right? And you can't get pushed off the line, right? We always talk about a win and a loss for a D-line. Mars is what? About 2 yards from the line of scrimmage, right?
Yeah, basically.
If you get pushed beyond that 1.5 yard to 2 yard max, right? It's a win for the O-line, right? It's a win. So you can't get pushed off your spot, it's called. So it's going to be huge for these defensive line and linebackers. Again, because I do think their secondary is solid. Carmel's wide receivers are good, right? But I do think they can hold up enough in the secondary-wise. The question is, can they handle this downhill rush attack Mars, what do you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Carmel, I feel like, and I said this in the last game preview, is that Carmel's just feel like they're on another level right now, and I feel like everything is kind of working out perfectly. Specifically on the offensive side, defensively, they've been a stout defense for the past few years now. So I feel like this is kind of just same old Carmel. When you look at what they do best, they can just run anywhere they want, whether it's inside and power game or on the outside to just try to get their speed to outrun your speed. And I feel like they just need to continue doing this, and it all rides behind the play of the offensive line, because they have been really the major cog that just allows this Carmel team to kind of run very efficiently. So I think that the offensive line needs to continue doing what they're doing, and then you'll see the same style of play, dominant play that Carmel has been done so far. But the biggest question is going to be about Clarkstown South, right? What team do we see, right? And you said that already, the fact that they, in my opinion, they've been inconsistent. And I think that is the biggest...
They have the talent to beat anybody.
That's the point, is that they've just been too inconsistent for... and I know that... You have a fan club in Clarkstown South.
They're begging me to pick against them.
I know, but the point is that it's this season. I feel like they deserve to be even higher on the list of, they should always be a team that says, oh, this is one of the most dangerous teams in AA. But the issue that a lot of people have is consistency, right?
Yeah, and you usually get that with young teams, and they have a bunch of juniors.
Of course.
So it's not unusual.
No, I just think that is the biggest thing that is hurting them, right? From being that this team's one of the most dangerous teams in AA, because that's the difference. Look at Carmel, and they have a more veteran presence team, right? But they're consistently just up front doing what they're supposed to do. South is a younger team, less consistent, and they still have weapons, right? The point is, though, when I'm looking at South, it really is going to ride on this offensive line and this defensive line. I think they have to own the line of scrimmage in this game.
It's going to be hard.
It's going to be hard to do, and that's the whole point. The key to victory is really the thing to watch is just about this front, right? Who's going to win, right? If whoever wins will allow for their skill players to try to make a play. Now, granted, I think it'll still be difficult to do, even if you win a line of scrimmage, but I think it will make it a game, right? If you could do so. So I think this is a very interesting matchup for sure. It
definitely is. And the player to watch for me is their quarterback, Kevin Dahl for Carmel. He was really good last week, and he's been really solid. And I think he's going to have to make some more plays because I do think Clarkstown South is going to bail out for the run. But this is a guy who's dangerous with his arms and his legs. And for matchup, Mars, you kind of talked about it, and I did a little bit of breakdown on the matchup. But this is the Carmel rush attack versus that Clarkstown South front seven. I mean, that is going to be the big matchup that we both talked about. That's going to dictate who wins this game. And I kind of did a little bit of breakdown of both the offense and the defense and why it's going to be so important. For this video, we're going to talk about the matchup between Carmel's rush attack and that Clarkstown South defensive front seven, which is really going to dictate where this game goes. And I'm going to start with Carmel. Carmel, they like to bring in some heavy sets, a couple tight ends, a couple backs. They'll bring in some receivers, but it's those condensed formations that I think they are really, really good at. It gives them multiple options, right? They can run with power. They can run inside with those heavy sets. They even sometimes use these heavy sets to condense the defense to run outside. But the rush attack is extremely potent, and then the play action off it is really deadly. We'll go over a couple plays. And so this first one, again, you can see two tight ends, two backs. They're motioning a back into the boundary. And look at all these guys in the box. I mean, the numbers are pretty even. But Carmel has a physical offensive line, physical tight ends, physical backs, and they think that they can overpower you and hurt you running wherever. And this time they're going to show a pitch. Again, they can run inside, but we're going to show that, hey, they can condense formations to get to the outside. You're going to see that motion. This guy, he's going to block out there. Fullback's blocking out. They're going to pull a guard. Watch these guys at the play side, how physical they are, turning defenders. And they just do a good job getting a body on a body, creating movement. I mean, look at this right here. Look at on the initial contact. Look at them turning their hips. Look at the tight end getting his hips to the outside. I mean, now you're seeing this caravan starting to develop, but it all starts at the point of attack. Look at this double team right here. Not creating penetration. And look at them. Get all outside, and they got a body on a body now. Great block on the outside. You can see the guard getting involved. They got that fullback leading the charge. They won play side. He got to the outside. And now you're going to see these backs. With this kind of space, they can hit big plays. And here's one of them right there. They're going to explode to the outside right there for a touchdown. And again, you don't always have to bring heavy sets to run inside. And Carmel shows that you can do that. Again, look at these initial blocks. Look at the double team. Look at these guys get out in space. See you later. Again, I talk about the run game. Here again, another condensed formation. Got a tight end. They got a couple receivers, but look at them. Tight to the line of scrimmage, acting like another tight end. And all these guys in the box. And when they can run the ball successfully, it opens a play action. They're going to get that motion. Cross the formation this time. Fake the run. They're going to throw it to the wheel. Have these guys cross over the middle. But watch the secondary's eyes looking into the backfield. And look at the play fake. Look at everyone's eyes. Right? And when everyone's staring to the backfield, all it needs is 1 second to get good leverage with the receiver. And that's exactly what they get. I mean, look at this protection. Play action. Now you get the receiver one-on-one with a safety. Boom. It's a big-time play. And they like to use these condensed formations to run the ball and to hit these play-action pass plays. Again, what can Clarkstown South do? Hey, we go to Clarkstown South, and it's going to rely on this front seven. Right? They're going to have to win these one-on-one matchups. These linebackers are going to have to be very aggressive. And they have the potential to be. Again, you're going to see different formations, but 2 backs. Right? They have a tailback, 2 backs. They're going to run with some power. They're going to be pulling the guard. Watch how this defense swarms, and they're going to have to. Right? Look at the defense swarm. Look at the linebacker. He's not waiting. He's attacking backside, running down the line of scrimmage. But look at the play side. Again, not getting sealed. Look at him attack with his inside arm, keep the outside arm free. Look at these guys fighting across. Look at the safety coming up. This is what they're going to have to do. Great finish on that tackle. They're going to have to be aggressive to stop the run. Reads a pulling guard. Look at him attack, not waiting. Doesn't allow a lineman to get up to him. But look at these guys fighting. They're not getting pushed off their spot. It's going to be huge. Again, one more play. Even when they have 2 receivers, right? 3 guys out for 2. Okay, that means these guys got to win these one-on-one matchups. They're going to try to run a sweep. Again, I think Carmel has a physical advantage, but Clarkstown South's got to use their speed. Watch this guy right here. Shooting the gap. Look at him use his speed. Look at the get-off right there, making this play. The Clarkstown South, to stop this rush attack, they're going to have to use their speed. They're going to have these linebackers be aggressive. Again, this is going to be a really intriguing matchup. All right, Mars, let's go to our game picks. And again, the goal in our game picks is obviously to get over 75%. 75% is our barometer, and both of us want to get over it. Last week I went 7-2. You went 8-1. So you beat me and Loa. Loa went 7-2. So congratulations.
Nice.
But let's start it off, Mars. And the first game, White Plains 3-1 at Arlington is 2-2. Again, this is a non-league game, but a game to improve your record. And White Plains offense has weapons, and we talked about it in the breakdown. I think they're going to try to attack the edge with their speed. How can this offensive line hold up against the penetration of the defensive line of Arlington is going to be big. A couple weeks ago I mentioned they struggled against the power running game of Scarsdale. How are they going to handle this one against Arlington? And I'm expecting Arlington to have some heavy runs. But the thing is, play smart, don't turn the ball over. And can they get that pressure on the defensive side with their front 4 is going to be big. I think that they actually do. I think Arlington is going to be able to run the ball downhill enough and keep White Plains offense on the sideline long enough. They're going to control the time of possession. I'm taking Arlington in this one. They're at home. It's not an easy place to play. I'm going to go with Arlington.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Arlington too, and I'm going to go for the same reasons. The fact that I think their offensive line is more powerful. They're going to hold the ball a lot more and give their offense more chances to score, defense more rest. I think they're just going to win this game.
Another interesting game, RCK 2-2 at Mamaroneck, who is 4-0. Another non-league game. RCK has, they've been playing well the last couple weeks. This rush attack has been potent. But to me, I'm looking at this defensive side, right? They've done a pretty good job the last couple weeks forcing turnovers. Can they prevent the big plays? And Mamaroneck's offense has been really efficient. Again, this is the number 1 offense in 1AA. They have the number 2 defense, which to me is the biggest surprise in 1AA so far in points allowed. The last time they were 5-0, Mars, to start the season, Mamaroneck, was before 2004. Again, it has been over 16 years since that has happened. I think this is going to be the first time we see it. I think Mamaroneck wins this game. It's because they're playing good complementary football. I do think that they'll hit a couple big plays on RCK that they won't be able to match. I'm going to go with Mamaroneck.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mamaroneck as well. I feel like that this is the team that's just been clicking on all cylinders, offensively and defensively. I think offensively they're extremely dangerous, and I think that they're just going to win this game.
Let's go to a league matchup. Our Spring Valley 0-4 at Suffern, who is 3-1. And Suffern, Spring Valley is a team that has been getting better, especially defensively. I like the way that they played Arlington tough last week. Again, I like what coach has done over there, and we knew it was going to be a slow process with the amount of young players that they had, but this is a group that is getting better. But I will say this, Suffern, they were down 21-7 last week. They had way too many penalties and mistakes that really cost them. They bounced hard in the fourth quarter to try to get back in that game, and a 2-point conversion stopped them from tying it. I think Suffern bounces back in a big way. I think they're going to play angry this week, Mars. I'm going with Suffern.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Suffern too. I feel like Spring Valley's in the right direction. They're just still too young, and I think Suffern's just kind of like, I'm going to be on that warpath game, and I think they're going to win here.
Another league game, Mount Vernon 2-2 at New Rochelle, who's 3-1. This is New Rochelle's homecoming, so the place is going to be a little wild. Mount Vernon's offense has really struggled the last 2 weeks, Mars. They need some momentum back, and to me, it's got to look at this front. They got to step up their game and play more efficiently and try to move some bodies and create some space for their playmakers. But when I look at New Rochelle, they were balanced last week. Quarterback Luzzy, their running backs, their wide receivers, guys like Brandon, Santiago, Andrews, Clark. I think New Rochelle I think this could be a game where New Rochelle really lays some heavy wood down on the offensive side of the ball. And defensively, they did a good job. They had a shutout last week, stepping back in the right direction. I'm going to go with New Rochelle.
Yeah, I'm going with New Rochelle as well. I feel like the fact that it's homecoming is definitely going to really elevate their spirits and motivation. I think they're just going to pull away in this one. I'm going with New Rochelle.
Another league matchup, Scarsdale 1-3 at Yonkers Forest, who's 1-3. Again, the injury concerns for Scarsdale is definitely concerning to me, but I do think this offensive line and defensive line step up, running the ball with Glantz a bunch, and I think Glantz will make a bunch of plays defensively. When I look at Yonkers Forest, I thought the defense really played tough last week, and really played solid the last couple weeks. But I think Scarsdale's defense is really going to step up in this game, and I think they're going to make enough big plays, especially running the football with Glantz. I'm going to go with Scarsdale.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Scarsdale too. I feel like their offensive line was still performing well enough for them to be able to move the ball effectively. Even though the injury is pretty big, I just still think the offense is still pretty efficient. I'm going to go with Scarsdale.
Yonkers Brave is 0-4 at Portchester, who's 0-4. This is a non-league matchup, but both teams trying to get their first victory. When I look at Yonkers Brave, Mars, defensively, they've definitely improved. They've started to make some more plays, be a little more consistency, but offensively is where they can't find the consistency on the offensive side of the ball. And to me, I'm looking at this offensive line. I do think it'll play better this week, but can they consistently open up holes? I'm a little concerned. For Portchester, defensively, they're last in points allowed. Right, so this is a defense that have given up a lot of big plays. I'm interested to see if Yonkers Brave can make those big plays. But offensively, they have been improving, Portchester. They've scored 3 touchdowns 2 of the last 3 games. Right? This is kind of a game I've gone back and forth a bunch of times, but I'm going to go with Portchester. They're home. The offense has been clicking a little bit more. I don't think Yonkers Brave offense is consistent enough that they're going to take advantage of a Portchester defense that have given up a lot of big plays. I'm going with Portchester.
I'm going with Yonkers Brave. I feel like they played, when you look at the Superintendent's Cup, you saw some shines.
Yep.
Yeah, you saw some shines of signs of light there, and I feel like they have the capability to make big plays. They just have to find that cohesion, and I feel like this is going to be an interesting matchup for them. I'm going to go with Brave here to make the upset at Portchester home.
Another non-league game, Ossining 1-4 at North Rockland, who's 2-2. This is again non-league game. Ossining, the offense, too many mistakes last week. The turnovers were really big. And I also thought last week the defense, who has been pretty scrappy, struggled against the run. And when I look at North Rockland, Mars, the run game has actually been pretty potent. With this offensive line who has been physical, their running back Frazier, who last week, 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. And North Rockland's defense, Mars, has really picked up. 14 or less in 3 straight games. Guys like Christoph Lee, Visciano have really stepped up on the defensive side of the ball. I think North Rockland is heading in the right direction. I'm going to go with North Rockland here. They're going to win.
Yeah, I'm going to North Rockland as well. I feel like when their rush offense is rocking, then North Rockland's rocking. And I feel like they're going to do the same thing this week, and I think they're going to win.
One of the big league matchups that we talked about, Mars, John Jay East Fishkill 2-2 at Fox Lane, who's 3-1. John Jay East Fishkill is a young team. Can they mature for a big road game at Fox Lane? How are they going to respond to getting beat up last week by Carmel? These are things that are running through my mind. And when I look at Fox Lane, this is in the Fox Den. I mean, they're going to be home. Fans are going to be going nuts. Big opportunity for Fox Lane. These quarterbacks have been making plays, and they had those skill guys who can hit those big plays on the outside. And this has been a solid defense. I talked about it. Number 7 in points allowed. But I do think I have faith in John Jay East Fishkill's coaching. I have faith in some of these young guys, and a guy like Peyton I think is going to hit some big plays this week. And I'm going to go with John Jay East Fishkill on the road. This young team gets a big, mature victory.
Yeah, I'm going to go John Jay East Fishkill as well. I feel like when you have a crushing loss, usually you always play a lot better in the next week. And I feel like the fact that they played up against Carmel, who's the top team in AA, gives them that motivation to say we're not going to get beat down like that ever again. And I think these young guys are going to really respond to that motivation. And I think their offensive line is definitely going to start moving bodies, right? And I think I'm going to John Jay on this one.
The game of the week. Carmel 4-0 at Clarkstown South 3-1. Big league game. I look at Carmel, their front, their power running game. They have been too potent for every team they have played so far. Can it continue this week against a Clarkstown South defense that, when they're on their game, is a really potent defense? And I look at Clarkstown South. They have some deadly skill guys. The seniors have really done a good job carrying the load with some of these young guys maturing faster than most expected. So I see these two teams going at it, Mars. Who do you have and why?
Well, this was very interesting. I feel like when you're making a pick here, you have to understand that one team is full veterans and the other team is going to be mainly young guys. And the question I had when I went over the preview was consistency. Who's going to be consistent in this game? Now, I think that when you look at Carmel, they may overlook Clarkstown South, right? You know, and obviously at this point, Carmel's been kind of running over everybody. So they might fall into the trap of, well, we're just going to run over Clarkstown South, and South might shock them. And I feel like when you look at the game, my prediction is going to be halftime, and I might be bold here. I'm going to go close to a score of 14-14, where South is going to keep it close to Carmel, right, and by halftime. But then Carmel's going to wake up, right, and I think Carmel's going to win the game. And the reason why I'm going to say this is because I think Carmel is just, I think, a different tier of team this year, where they are like the New Rochelle team that we always picture, where they kind of wake up at some point and they say, wait a second, we're New Rochelle. And I think Carmel's going to wake up and say, wait a second, we're the Carmel Rams. And that's when they're going to turn it on. Now, I don't think it's just going to be a blowout after that. I think South is still going to play tough. But I think Carmel's going to start doing back to the old school Carmel, and start to try to just run you over. And they're not going to try these, very intricate offensive, moves. Let me do some motions and all that. I don't think they're going to do any of that. They're going to not even think about that. They're going to say, let's just run you over. Let's just see who can win the man-on-man fight. And I think Carmel's going to win that, especially with all their veteran presence, and his offensive line has just been moving bodies. So Carmel is gonna win this game, but I think South is going to keep it close, and I think they're going to kind of shock Carmel in the very beginning.
Clarkstown South, again, talented group. They showed last week that when they play at the top of their game, they could beat anyone, including people on the road. Now they are home, and the place is going to be rocking. This Clarkstown South team is going to be up to the challenge. Clarkstown South has been begging me to pick against them, because every time I pick against them, that's when they seem to play their best. Well, I'm going to grant their wish. I'm going to go with Carmel, and it's because I'm not doing it as a Clarkstown South, under the table is going to win. I do think Carmel is going to win, and I do think Clarkstown South is a very talented team, and I have respect for the players on that team, especially the veteran guys who've done a really good job and stepping up in big moments. But these young guys have matured, and there's a couple of them I mentioned, Fatera, Ale. I mean, there's a bunch of them that have really stepped up and been big key contributors. Their young quarterbacks have been getting better. This is a dangerous Clarkstown South team, and if Carmel doesn't show up ready, like you said, they will shock them. but I do think Carmel will be focused. And I do think that they're going to win this game. I do think the power running game will eventually wear down, and they'll make enough plays, especially defensively, and force a couple turnovers. So I'm going to go with Carmel. All right, everyone, that was our show. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Again, thank you so much for your support and watching. Hope you have a sports-filled and football-filled weekend, and we'll see you all very soon.